Torin Vay's legs shook as he stood at the edge of the volcanic arena. Smoke curled from the cracks in the blackened ground, and ash rained from the sky like gray snow. Beyond the arena walls, the ruined city of Calthera Prime lay in silence, broken towers jagged against the dark clouds. The wind carried the faint scent of sulfur and fear, and Torin could feel it clinging to his skin. He tried to steady his breathing. 14 years old, small and wiry, he was no match for the crimson drakes that ruled this planet. Their scales shimmered like molten metal, eyes glowing with hunger and intelligence. Many humans said they were monsters, but Torin knew better. They were clever, dangerous, and proud. Every misstep meant death, yet they could be studied, understood, maybe even outsmarted. Torin's mother grabbed his shoulders, her hands trembling. "Remember, Torin," she whispered, "courage is more than fighting. Think. Be smart. Survive." Her voice broke, but her eyes burned with hope. His father stepped forward, pressing a small, jagged shard of reflective metal into Torin's palm. "Use this. Watch carefully. Notice everything. They fear what they cannot control." Torin nodded. He clenched the shard tightly. It was not a weapon, not really, but it could reflect light, distract, or reveal patterns the dragons didn't expect. He had studied the dragons from the city ruins for months, noting their flight paths, how they hunted, and their unusual hesitations when faced with unpredictable objects. It was his only advantage, and it had to be enough. A horn echoed through the arena, deep and trembling, shaking the ash at his feet. The gates opened, and the first of the crimson drakes emerged. It was enormous, wings spreading wider than the ruined buildings behind it, scales blackened at the edges with firelight. Its eyes locked onto Torin, and a low growl rolled through the ground. The crowd of survivors, humans like him, forced to watch, held their breath. Torin stepped forward, forcing his legs to obey. His heart pounded, but his mind raced faster. Every instinct told him to run, yet he knew running meant instant death. Instead, he observed. The dragon's wings beat in a slow, heavy rhythm, its claws scraping the cracked stone as it tested the ground. Torin noticed the way it hesitated before stepping into shadows, how its tail twitched at sudden reflections. That pause, slight, almost unnoticeable, was his opening. The elder dragon reared, flames licking the edges of its mouth. Torin ducked instinctively, rolling to the side and sending a burst of ash into the dragon's eyes. It flinched, giving him a moment. He held up the shard, catching the dim sunlight and reflecting a blinding beam across its face. The dragon shrieked, wings flapping violently. Torin barely kept his balance as the ground shook beneath him. But the dragon was smarter than he expected. It circled, adjusting to the shard, trying to predict his next move. Torin's mind raced. He couldn't fight with strength. He had to fight with thought, with speed, with observation. Each step he took was calculated, to the left to avoid the claws, to the right to keep the sun behind the shard, back a step to bait the dragon into misjudging distance. The crowd murmured, tension thick enough to taste. They had never seen a human survive this long. Torin's small hands gripped the shard tighter. Every decision mattered. A single wrong move could mean death. Yet each success, each moment the dragon faltered, gave him hope. He could survive this. He would survive this. Suddenly, a shadow passed overhead. Another dragon appeared, larger, darker, and more terrifying than the first. Its eyes were filled with ancient intelligence, and it circled like a hawk hunting prey. Torin's stomach dropped. The arena was closing in. He had faced one dragon, but now he faced two. He was outnumbered, outmatched in size, yet not in mind. Torin's eyes darted between the two beasts. He spotted a narrow fissure in the lava crust ahead, one that could serve as a temporary refuge, a place to bait the elder dragon into overreaching. His heart pounded as he calculated distance, timing, and reaction. One misstep and the lava below would be the end. One correct move and, maybe he could survive the first trial. The two dragons landed simultaneously, flames licking the arena walls. The crowd gasped. Torin clenched the shard and took a deep breath. He was small. He was human. But he was not powerless. Every lesson, every observation, every moment of courage in the ruins of Calthera had led to this. He would not be a sacrifice. Not today. And then, with a flicker of light and a careful step, Torin lunged toward the fissure, reflecting the shard at the precise angle he had calculated. Flames erupted, dragons roared, and the ground trembled. This was only the beginning. Survival meant outthinking monsters who had ruled the skies for centuries. Torin's life depended on it, and the next move would decide everything. Torin scrambled across the jagged fissure, the reflective shard clutched in his hand. Flames hissed around him, heat searing the back of his neck. The elder dragons circled overhead, their wings stirring clouds of ash and embers. Every step was a gamble. One miscalculation, one slip, and the molten cracks below would claim him. Yet he refused to falter. He had learned early in Calthera Prime that fear was a tool, not a master. The first dragon landed with a thunderous crash, claws scraping the stone near the fissure's edge. It bared its teeth, scales glinting in the firelight, a low growl vibrating through the ground. Torin froze, feeling the tremor under his feet. He could see its eyes scanning him, calculating his weakness. It wasn't just brute strength he faced, it was intelligence, predatory cunning honed over centuries. Torin crouched behind a jagged rock, heart hammering. He had one advantage, the shard. It could reflect the sun or the dim arena light, momentarily blinding the dragons. He had watched the elders hesitate at sudden flashes before. He had studied their pauses. But this was different, two dragons now, one of them larger, older, with wings spanning the arena floor. They were testing him, not just physically, but mentally, measuring his reaction, his thought, his courage. A wave of smoke rolled over him. Torin coughed, blinking through the haze. His mind raced. There was a platform of solid rock a few steps ahead, just wide enough to hold him. If he could reach it, he could force the dragons to circle, giving him time to analyze their patterns, maybe even communicate, or at least survive. He moved, low and careful, using shadows to mask his motion, the shard angled to catch glimmers of light. The elder dragon snapped at him mid-step. Its jaw clanged against the rock where he had been moments before. Torin leapt, rolling as he hit the next platform. He felt fire brush against his arm, smoke in his lungs, but he kept moving. Every instinct screamed panic, but his mind was focused, alert, calculating. He had survived this long by thinking, not by fighting. Survival was a chess game, and he had already studied the board. Then came the second dragon. Its wings beat down, stirring a wind that almost knocked Torin off the edge. It landed, shaking the platform beneath him. He felt the vibration up through his legs, threatening to throw him into the molten cracks. The shard slipped in his hand for a fraction of a second. Panic flared, but he gritted his teeth and caught it. He had only one chance, precision, timing, and courage in perfect alignment. Torin lifted the shard high, catching a glimmer of sunlight and reflecting it directly at the larger dragon's eyes. The dragon recoiled, a hiss of fire and fury escaping its throat. Torin darted to the side, using the moment of confusion. He noticed something, the elder's tail twitched whenever it misjudged a reflection. If he could manipulate the shard like a second heartbeat, he could control the dragon's reactions, force it into hesitation, force it to reveal a weakness. He did exactly that. Step by step, angle by angle, reflection by reflection, he guided the elder dragon into an overextended lunge, narrowly avoiding its claws. Sweat stung his eyes, ash burned his lungs, but he kept moving. His muscles screamed, but his mind stayed razor-sharp. This was more than survival, it was human ingenuity against impossible odds. Every calculated move made him feel alive, human, and defiant. Suddenly, a flash of insight struck. The dragon's coordination relied on vibrations they sensed through the ground and air. If he could disrupt that signal, even briefly, he could create an opening, a chance to turn the trial in his favor. Torin pressed the shard against the rock, sending sharp flashes of light in quick succession. The elder dragon froze, head tilting, wings flapping erratically. The second dragon hesitated, unsure of the source of disruption. Torin darted forward, leaping onto a higher ledge, feeling the platform give slightly under his weight. Below, lava hissed, fissures expanded, and the arena seemed to roar in anger. Yet in that chaos, Torin found clarity. Survival was not about strength. It was about courage, intelligence, and resolve. He was human, small and fragile, yet capable of things the dragons had never seen from a human before. But even as he gained a fleeting advantage, the dragons adapted. The elder let out a deafening roar that shook the air, a warning, a test of Torin's limits. His legs trembled, his heart raced, and doubt flickered for the first time. Could he truly survive this? Could a human match these ancient predators? He swallowed hard and forced himself to focus. Hesitation meant death. Thought, speed, and courage meant survival. The second dragon lunged suddenly, claws slicing the air where Torin had been a moment before. He tumbled sideways, rolling across the ledge, shard in hand, and came up crouched, chest heaving. Sweat and ash mixed on his skin, stinging eyes and mouth. For a heartbeat, he imagined falling into the molten cracks below. But he didn't. He was still here, still thinking, still fighting. Then, amidst the smoke and chaos, he saw it, movement, subtle but undeniable. One of the dragons paused, shifting its gaze not at him, but at something else. A flicker of curiosity in its eye. Torin realized it was Shurik, the smaller elder. Unlike the other dragon, it didn't move to strike. It observed, cautious but not hostile. A chance. A possibility. A moment where a human might turn fear into connection. Torin's pulse thundered. Survival had become more than instinct, it had become a test of courage, intelligence, and empathy. He had to act, and fast. One wrong move and everything would end in fire and ash. One right move, and the impossible might just be possible. He squared his shoulders, gripped the shard, and prepared to step forward, toward the dragon that could be his ally, or his doom. And then, as he took that step, the arena trembled beneath the elder's wings, a deep, echoing roar splitting the sky. Torin knew in that instant, the trial had only just begun, and the next move would define everything. Torin froze for a moment, heart hammering in his chest, as the smaller dragon, Shurik, circled above him. Unlike the elder, it didn't roar, didn't lunge. Its wings beat slowly, almost tentatively, and its amber eyes tracked him with a strange intelligence. Torin's instincts screamed that it could kill him in an instant, but he also sensed something else, curiosity. A test, maybe. An opening. He crouched behind a jagged rock, shards of ash falling onto his hair. His hands shook as he held the reflective shard, but he forced himself to focus. Shurik wasn't attacking. It was observing, calculating. Torin had faced dragons all his life in the ruins, but never like this, never one that hesitated, one that seemed almost human in thought. He took a deep breath. "I'm not here to hurt you," he whispered, voice barely carrying over the roar of the elder's wings. "I want to survive. I want to understand you." His words sounded ridiculous even to him, but he had learned that bravery was more than running, it was taking calculated risks, even when the odds were impossible. Shurik dipped lower, wings grazing the arena floor. Torin's eyes widened. It didn't strike. Instead, it nudged the shard gently with its snout. It recoiled slightly, then nudged it again. Torin's mind raced. The dragon seemed playful. Testing. He realized quickly that the shard wasn't just a distraction, it was a language, a way to communicate without words. Torin extended his hand slowly, keeping his movements deliberate and calm. "I don't want to be your enemy," he said. "I can learn from you, and maybe teach you too." His pulse thundered in his ears as Shurik tilted its head, studying him. Its claws scraped lightly against the stone but didn't attack. The human boy had done something no one else had dared. He had approached a dragon with respect instead of fear. The arena trembled as the elder dragon let out a deafening roar, reminding Torin that danger was still real. Yet, for the first time, he felt a flicker of hope. Survival wasn't just about fleeing, it was about connection. He had spent weeks observing patterns, learning behavior, and now he could test his theory: maybe humans weren't meant to fight dragons. Maybe they were meant to understand them. Slowly, carefully, Torin held the shard out again, reflecting light toward Shurik. The dragon nudged it once more and then stopped, watching intently. Torin took another step forward. "I'm Torin," he said, voice steady. "I want to survive. Will you help me?" Shurik's amber eyes met his, and for a long heartbeat, Torin feared it would lash out. But instead, the dragon lowered its head slightly, almost in acknowledgement. It was subtle, but to Torin, it was monumental. He swallowed hard, heart racing. He had found an ally where none should have existed. A human had reached across centuries of instinct and terror, and the dragon had responded. The elder dragon noticed. Its roar shook the air, wings flaring, and Torin instinctively moved to shield Shurik, positioning his small body between the larger dragon and the one who had chosen to test him. He realized something vital: alliances weren't just about cooperation, they were about trust, timing, and courage. He had to prove that he could protect his new ally, or the fragile connection would be broken before it began. The elder lunged suddenly, and Torin rolled aside, feeling the heat of the flames brush his face. He grabbed the shard and reflected a sudden beam of light toward the elder's eyes. The dragon flinched, but it didn't strike Shurik. The smaller dragon darted to his side, moving with surprising speed, as if guiding him. Torin's mind raced. He was no longer just a survivor, he was part of something bigger, a partnership bridging species and fear. Torin's muscles burned as he ran, ducked, and jumped over fractured stone, all while coordinating movements with Shurik. Every instinct, every calculation, mattered. The arena had become a living puzzle, and he had a partner who could anticipate, adapt, and act in ways no human could. The stakes were higher than ever. The elder dragon's patience was thin, and one misstep would mean death for both of them. Then, a crack split the air as a section of the arena wall collapsed, revealing a hidden tunnel that led downward into shadows. Torin's eyes widened. It could be an escape, or another trap. He glanced at Shurik, who hovered just above, eyes fixed on the path. The dragon seemed to sense his question before he asked it. With a subtle nod, Shurik gestured toward the tunnel, tail flicking with determination. Torin's chest tightened. Every step forward would be dangerous. Lava fissures snaked across the floor, smoke choked the air, and the elder dragon roared in frustration. Yet he took a deep breath, gripping the shard, feeling the heat on his skin, and trusted his instincts, and his new ally. Humans survived because they could think, adapt, and act with courage where others panicked. That truth had never been clearer than it was now. One step at a time, he moved toward the shadowed tunnel, Shurik gliding just above. The elder dragon shifted, wings flaring, preparing to strike, but the small dragon intercepted, distracting it just long enough. Torin didn't look back. His legs burned, his lungs screamed for air, but he pressed forward, each step calculated, every movement precise. The darkness of the tunnel promised danger, but also opportunity. Torin realized that this was only the beginning of his trial. He had survived the first moments, earned a tentative ally, and learned that humans could connect across species, even with beings thought impossible to reason with. Courage, intelligence, and heart had opened a door where fear alone would have closed it forever. As he stepped into the shadows, the arena behind him roared in fury, flames licking the sky. Torin knew one thing for certain: the trial was far from over, and the next challenge would demand everything he had, and more. The tunnel was dark, hot, and narrow, with cracks glowing faintly from the molten rivers beneath. Torin pressed forward carefully, every step calculated, every breath measured. Shurik glided above, wings folding low, eyes scanning the walls for hidden dangers. For the first time, Torin didn't feel entirely alone in the arena. He had an ally, a dragon who understood, in its own way, that humans were more than prey. They emerged into a cavern, walls shimmering with heat-streaked minerals, the ground uneven and treacherous. At the center stood a massive rock spire, jagged and tall, stretching almost to the cavern's ceiling. Atop it, glowing faintly, was the Crown of Embers, an ancient artifact that symbolized the authority of the Elder Dragons. To touch it was to be tested, not just for strength, but for courage and intelligence. Torin's pulse surged. This was the final trial. If he failed, the arena would claim him, and Shurik might be punished for aiding him. Torin studied the spire. Lava flows snaked around its base, unstable, boiling, ready to claim anyone who misstepped. He noticed subtle patterns, the way the heat shifted, the cracks widened, and the shadows danced with the movement of the dragons above. It was dangerous, yes, but it was predictable. And humans could think where dragons relied on raw instinct. That had always been their edge. He glanced at Shurik. The dragon hovered close, wings folding protectively, tail brushing the stone in encouragement. Torin swallowed hard. "We do this together," he said. He didn't know if Shurik understood his words, but the dragon's eyes seemed to lock with his, almost nodding. Together, they began the ascent. The climb was brutal. Sharp rocks cut his hands, heat from the lava burned his legs, and the cavern trembled with every beat of the elder dragon's wings overhead. Torin had to leap across jagged ledges, calculate timing, and predict the elders' attacks before they came. His body screamed for rest, but his mind was sharper than ever. Survival demanded precision. Courage demanded action. Intelligence demanded he use both. At one point, a molten fissure opened beneath him, sending a wall of fire upward. Torin leaped sideways, rolling across a ledge, shards still clutched tightly in his hand. Flames licked his sleeve, singed the hair at his neck, but he kept moving. Shurik darted between him and the elder, wings beating furiously, claws extended to deflect the smaller rocks falling from above. Torin realized that the dragon wasn't just helping him survive, it was teaching him. Together, they were a team, one human mind and one dragon instinct moving in perfect sync. Halfway up, the elder dragon roared, flapping its wings in a furious display of dominance. The cavern walls trembled, dust falling like rain. Torin's stomach lurched, and the ledge beneath him wobbled dangerously. He froze for a split second, calculating, breathing, centering himself. Then he moved, fast, precise, and deliberate. Every leap was timed to the dragon's movement, every handhold chosen to avoid the heat and instability. Courage wasn't reckless, it was calculated action under pressure. Finally, he reached a narrow platform near the top, the Crown of Embers just a few feet above. Its glow pulsed like a heartbeat, casting golden light across the jagged rocks. Torin extended a trembling hand. The heat radiated through his skin, and he could hear the elder dragon's wings beating in frustration behind him. He knew he had only one chance. One misstep, and all would be lost. Shurik hovered just above, nudging him gently with its snout, almost as if urging him on. Torin took a deep breath and grasped the crown. The moment his fingers touched it, a pulse of energy shot through the cavern, vibrations racing through the walls. The elder dragon froze, wings suspended mid-flap, eyes widening in recognition. Torin felt it too, not pain, but acknowledgement. The dragons understood. A human had reached the top. A human had proven something no one else ever had. Torin lifted the crown, holding it aloft, feeling the weight of centuries of expectation and fear. Shurik landed beside him, scales brushing his arm, and for the first time, Torin felt a bond deeper than survival, a partnership, forged through courage, intellect, and heart. The elder dragon lowered its head, a gesture of respect, and the cavern trembled not in attack, but in recognition. Humans could rise. Humans could survive. Humans could lead. The descent was tense, every step calculated to avoid the lava flows now shifting in response to the elder's movements. Torin didn't look away, he led the way, Shurik beside him, moving in perfect coordination. The other dragons watched silently, their judgment suspended. Torin's courage had not only survived the trial, it had rewritten the rules of engagement between humans and dragons. As they emerged back into the main arena, the crowd gasped. Torin's arms held the glowing crown high. Flames from the elder dragons licked the walls, but none dared strike. Shurik nudged him gently, tail flicking, and Torin realized something profound: he wasn't just a survivor. He was a champion of two worlds, a human who had earned the respect of creatures thought invincible. The arena trembled with approval and astonishment. Torin's parents cried, tears streaming down soot-streaked faces. Humans and dragons alike had witnessed something extraordinary, a boy who dared, who calculated, who acted with courage and intelligence against impossible odds. He had done what no human had ever done, he had reached the crown, alive, unbroken, and triumphant. Torin lowered the crown slightly, his chest heaving. Shurik nudged him again, and for the first time, he smiled, not from relief, but from the recognition that humans could truly rise above what the world expected. They could survive. They could lead. And in that moment, the impossible seemed possible. But the elder dragon still watched, wings folded, eyes unblinking. Torin knew the next challenge was not over. Survival had earned him respect, but he had to prove that humans could hold it. And the final test, the crown's true power, was still waiting, just beyond the edge of his understanding. The arena was quiet now, save for the distant rumble of lava and the crackling of embers along the walls. Torin's chest heaved, sweat mixing with ash, but his eyes shone with determination. The crown of embers pulsed faintly in his hands, warm and alive, as if acknowledging the courage it had just witnessed. Around him, the elder dragons circled silently, their massive wings folding in observation rather than aggression. Torin knew the moment had come. This was more than survival. This was recognition, not just of him, but of humanity itself. Humans had been seen as fragile, weak, expendable in a world ruled by dragons. Today, he had proved otherwise. He was alive. He had outthought, outmaneuvered, and earned respect from creatures who had dominated the skies for centuries. Shurik hovered beside him, wings flicking with a subtle rhythm. The smaller dragon's amber eyes met his, and Torin could feel a connection, a bond forged through trust, courage, and shared risk. He realized something profound: the dragons did not fear him. They acknowledged him. And in that acknowledgement was power, trust, and possibility. The elder dragon descended slowly, landing on the molten stone before him. Its eyes locked with Torin's, immense and intelligent, and for the first time, Torin saw a glimmer of approval, almost like a nod. Then, with a sudden movement that was both terrifying and graceful, the dragon extended a claw, touching the crown lightly with a gesture that spoke of acceptance. The arena trembled, and the humans watching gasped. Torin's heart skipped. He had not been sacrificed. He had been chosen. A surge of emotion hit him. Relief. Pride. Awe. He looked to the crowd of humans huddled beyond the arena walls. Their faces were pale, shocked, and shining with tears. Families he had never met were staring, witnessing the impossible, a human standing proud, alive, and honored among dragons. It was a moment that would ripple through the settlement, through the city, through the legends of Calthera Prime. Torin felt Shurik nudge his arm gently. The dragon's presence was reassuring, almost protective. For months, humans had survived by hiding, by fleeing, by enduring. Today, Torin had shown a different path, one of intelligence, courage, and moral strength. He had not sought to dominate or destroy. He had sought to survive, to observe, and to act with heart. And the dragons had recognized it. He raised the crown of embers higher, and it glowed brighter, light reflecting across Shurik's scales and the elder's wings. The crowd murmured in awe. Torin's parents stepped forward, tears streaming, their voices catching in the smoke-filled air. "Our boy," his mother whispered, voice trembling. "He survived. He did it." But Torin wasn't thinking about himself. He was thinking about what this meant. Humans could rise. They could endure. They could be respected by creatures that seemed impossible to conquer. He had not only survived the trial, he had reshaped what was possible. His courage, intelligence, and determination had turned fear into respect, terror into awe. That was the true power of humanity. Then came the final gesture. The elder dragon lowered its massive head until it was level with Torin's shoulders. It inhaled, a sound like wind through mountains, and exhaled gently, flames flaring harmlessly around him in a protective halo. Torin felt the heat, the power, and the acknowledgement. He understood, he was no longer just a human in the arena. He was a champion. Not a conqueror, not a hero by chance, but a living proof of human capability. Torin knelt slightly, bowing his head, but in his mind, he stood taller than ever. Shurik landed beside him, tail brushing his shoulder, and he reached out, letting the dragon's head rest against his arm. It was a gesture of trust and partnership. The humans outside began to cheer, tentative at first, then louder as realization spread. They had witnessed something extraordinary. One human, small and fragile in body, had stood against what everyone feared, and had succeeded. Torin's parents rushed forward, shielding him from the sudden eruption of applause and excitement. Tears ran down their faces, but pride shone brighter than any fear. The boy who had been chosen as a sacrifice had returned as a champion. The first human to ever hold the respect of the dragons. And as the flames of the arena licked the sky, Torin looked around and knew the truth: survival alone was not enough. Humans had to act, to think, to dare. They had to show courage, heart, and intelligence against impossible odds. Today, he had done that. Today, humanity had won more than life, it had earned honor, respect, and hope. The elder dragon lowered its head one final time, and the arena fell silent except for the distant hum of molten stone. Torin's hands remained firm on the crown. He had faced death, terror, and fire, and emerged not just alive, but victorious. Shurik nudged him once more, and he understood, this was not the end. It was the beginning. Humans could rise. Humans could endure. Humans could be champions of two worlds. Torin looked at the horizon beyond the arena, where smoke and ruin stretched for miles. His heart swelled with resolve. He would return to the settlement, teach what he had learned, and show that courage, intelligence, and moral strength could change the world. Today, he had survived. Tomorrow, humanity would thrive. And somewhere in the distance, the elder dragons watched, aware that the small, fragile beings they had once ruled would never be the same again. Torin took a deep breath. The crown of embers pulsed in his hands, warm with power and promise. He smiled, the weight of history on his shoulders, the fire of hope in his heart, and the knowledge that humans, no matter how small, could rise to meet impossible odds, and even shape the future of the dragons themselves.